Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your host, Cesar Hernandez, and we are here to talk about El Tri. We're here to talk about Liga MX. We're here to talk about Eduardo Vargas. In case you're living under a rock, he recently made that move to Tigres. And we're also here to talk, of course, about Chicharito, who scored that goal over the weekend, and the drought is now officially over. Drought is over. Light off those fireworks, started party. I felt like I should have had some sort of party over the weekend, but I had the flu. And this is actually the first time I've been making some public appearance since my week-long flu. I don't know. It was pretty bad, guys. All right, so before we get into all that, let me first introduce our guest tonight, Naib Moran over in Mexico City. Naib, how are you doing?
Buenas noches, good evening, Cesar, Tom, good to see you. Good to see Cesar. That is, the flu is gone by the looks of it.
Yeah, man. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
It's a strange start to the season. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But, the last week they scored 17 goals. This week they scored 14 goals, the total number of goals between the third week and the fourth week. And, of course, there's already a coach fired. Ricardo Baliño's out from Puebla. And in comes Saturnino Cardoso, who last season was over there in Chiapas, no? And now he's going to the other team. Same owners.
I'm still not used to seeing him like anybody else other than Toluca. It's very strange. But anyway, sorry.
That's what we have as an intro from Mexico City.
Tom, over Guadalajara, how you doing, man? You show up a little late. Are you ready to go? You good to go?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. All good. No complaints yet. Busy. Obviously, national team coming up next week as well. So, it's going to be fascinating to see what Osorio does in respect to which players and good to get the year with the national team underway as well next week.
Yeah, so let's get straight into it. I mean, February 8th next week, Mexico's going to be playing against Iceland in Las Vegas. Obviously, because it doesn't land on a FIFA date, it's going to be a Liga MX heavy roster. So just looking at that, Tom, I'm going to go to you. Just, which players do you want to see, given that call-up? Which players do you want to see given that attention, for Juan Carlos Osorio for El Tri?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I think there's quite a few at the minute. But there's always that debate, isn't it, when it comes to the national team about players. For example, there's the rumor out there today about Edson Alvarez, who's pretty much confirmed he's going to be in there. Yeah. And I think all of us, we've talked on the show and stuff about he's a good talent. But there's always that question mark in there when it comes to the national team. Should you be able to get in the national team so easily? Yeah. He's only played in the Liga MX a few months. But, so on paper, I'd like to see him in there. I think there's other players. I think Rodolfo Cota has completely won me over as a goalkeeper. Yeah. I think he's perhaps the best, apart from Talavera, in the Liga MX right now. In terms of Mexican goalkeeper. There's a few. I've written down a few. I think it's important to focus on a few of the problem positions as well. Obviously, I think the fullbacks recently have been, they're a little bit under question. You've got Aguilar, who's obviously been on the long-term injury list. You got Miguel Layun, who's not playing, who's been that. I don't know. He's been on the left for Osorio, he's been on the right, and it's like you'd like to see somebody else pushing there as well. I'll land it over to Naib and then I'll come back with a few more names.
I think those are good points that Tom brings up. I think the fullback situation is something to keep in mind. Let's also remember what has Osorio done in the past. For example, Osvaldo Alanis played as left back over there in Honduras, and he's actually now playing at a consistent basis in Chivas. Look, the Edson Alvarez story is phenomenal. I think it's special because of the way that he came about. It's not easy to get a starting role in America and right away, put up good performances, especially in the Liguilla. But then again, I think it's a process. The same can be said about Cesar Montes. Cesar Montes actually has more games in his back and should deserve, I think, a call-up by now, because he's already played a couple of seasons with Monterrey. And Edson Alvarez is quick. Edson Alvarez reminds me of the Jesus Gallardo call-up, which was also quite quick. We know that Gallardo is good left-footed player, but it's a process. It's not like Gallardo and Edson Alvarez are going to be the difference makers. Let's put it that way. They're players that are going to process. And I think let's keep an eye on players that could potentially be fundamental for El Tri. The names that come to mind, especially on the right back position, you got two options that are really good: Chapo Sanchez and Fernando Navarro from León. You know, you can also say that even Chapito Montes has been climbing up the ranks. I mean, Chapito, of course, is not a 20-year-old that is going to be lasting for long in the national team, but you do want old players in the Gold Cup. I mean, the Gold Cup, I wanted it to be a U23 team, but you do need several players that are above 23 years old, no?
Yeah, I like the fact that you guys brought up that we need to focus on the fullbacks because I mean, now you mentioned Navarro, who I think easily deserves a call up. I would love to see him give an opportunity. And another player that which I think a few of us have recognized in recent weeks, and especially Liga MX fans too, is just Alan Mendoza from Pumas. I think he is an interesting player to consider. I'm not saying he's going to be a key figure, that he's going to be going into the Confederations Cup and helping us out, but like in a February friendly, he is the exact kind of option, the exact kind of guy that you would like to put in there and just see what he can do. So I think that's interesting to know, as you mentioned, with the injury for Aguilar and with Layun, who was awful, and not the last game, which he wasn't actually included in, but the one previous to that one, where he foul led to a penalty for Porto. But yeah, I think it's interesting to focus on those positions. Tom,
quickly on that, I think Navarro and Chapo Sanchez.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the good Liga MX players, I don't think they're international quality. But I understand they are in the positions you'd expect them to be in there, considering it's a domestic-based squad. The only other thing with Osorio in the fullback position is he tends to go for players who are a bit, like Naib said before, with Alanis playing on the left back, Diego Reyes playing right back previously. I think he goes for players who are physically a bit bigger than those players. So I don't know. I still doubt whether those players are going to be in it. But just quickly on the fullback positions, it's actually like a little bit of a boom period. So, we complain about the 10-8 rule and everything, and now Mexicans aren't going to get a chance. But the quirky stat this season that there's a lot of Mexican fullbacks like Orantia at Puebla, Omar Mendoza, Cruz Azul, Navarro, Efrain Juarez played the other day for Monterrey. Van Rankin, Pumas, Jose Madueña, 2 assists for Atlas last weekend. Raul Lopez, I know he's been mainly on the bench, but Abella, Santos, Jorge Sanchez at Santos. He's an exciting little talent. Yeah. If you look at the stats on how he's done this season, he's done amazingly well.
Is that the Jorge Sanchez Orteaga? Is that what his last name? Because I don't know. I don't know if
I think there's an Arteaga.
Yeah, Arteaga. Well.
Sanchez.
Yeah. Ortega's a left back, if I'm not mistaken. You got Corral, Ivan Estrada, Jaime Gomez from Querétaro, Chapo Sanchez, Israel Jimenez. That's just the right back position. You go to the left back, you've got obviously players that we know.
You got Velarde, no?
Velarde, Aldrete, Gerardo Rodriguez, Arteaga, Luis Fuentes, Manny Garcia, Oswaldo Rodriguez, who just came. He's on loan now at León from Pachuca. He's an exciting young talent as well. Even Jairo Gonzalez, Luis Reyes at Atlas, he's been doing all right as well. So it's weird, but I just think what you want to see is all those players that I just mentioned. I think you want to see one or two of them, step up over the next, months and before the next World Cup at least.
And it's interesting. I mean, the reality, though, Tom, Cesar, those are defenders. There's good midfielders in Mexico, but the lack of strikers, it's really it's devastating because last season the top Mexican goal scorer was Chucky Lozano. He's not a striker, but he's a winger. This season, Lozano scored 3 goals in the first game against León, but then he's gotten off. Pulido's on and off. I think this is the season that Pulido should notoriously be on top of that list of top Mexican goal scorers, but he hasn't, been on fire. And I think that's. I think in Mexico, there's midfielders and there's a lot of fullbacks, like Tom just mentioned. I didn't realize how big the list was now.
I was there for about an hour in the cafe today, just going like, Jesus, how many of them are there? And I listen, like, actually, there's loads of options at fullback. I mean, like I said before, I don't know. You know, you look at, like I said, Chapo Sanchez, Navarro. I think they're really good players. I don't know if they're that. I don't know. I mean, there's always that debate in there when it comes to domestic squad, and what Naib said there before about you want some of the older players in there as well, which, you know, I agree with. If you're going to go to the Gold Cup, the pressure's going to be on. But I always kind of lean towards, let's just throw a youngster in because you don't know his ceiling, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you've got a 27-year-old, 28-year-old, you're like, well, you kind of, how much is going to improve from here? Whereas, you know, Jorge Sanchez, for example, at Santos, he's very, very early to be suggesting he should be called up. But, you know, I think he's 18 or something. At least you look at him and you think, what could he be? You know what I mean? You can imagine kind of what, you know, what he could turn into. But yeah, I mean, let's just going back to what Naib said about the striking situation. It is desperate. It really is at the minute. I mean, I think that the immediate answer should be Alan Pulido. But I mean, from watching him this season, he's just not quite. He's trying. I think he's working out in training and stuff, but it's just not kind of. He's just not there yet.
Yeah, I'm a little bit doubtful about the mentality, because a couple of weeks ago he said that being a striker in Chivas is more difficult than being a striker in another team like Pachuca or Tigres. That is difficult. I think in my opinion, if you're a good striker, you should feast in a team like Chivas, because and look, there's a lot of talk about the divisions that happen among teams where, you know, you have your foreign squad and you got your Mexican squad in a lot of Mexican teams. I mean, there's an evident split sometimes that you see when you go to hotels where the team stays. In Chivas, there should be a lot of camaraderie because they're all Mexican, you know? And I think that should make it easy for Pulido to score. Then again, the options that are developed, you know, the scoring chances, you know, sometimes Chofis is on, sometimes Chofis is off. You know, Pizarro is still accommodating to the whole life in Guadalajara. And I think maybe he doesn't get enough options. But sometimes Pulido does have misses that you're like, well, that's you can't be missing that, especially the pressure.
When that happens, you know, just quickly, when that happens, you know what I think? It just goes through my mind. That's why you didn't make it in Europe. You got to be putting those chances away. You know, when he gets those chances, you're like, you've got to be more clinical. And you look, why did he not do it in Europe? And you think, well, you've got to be that extra 2% clinical to make it over there.
And also, I mean, I felt like, I might be a little too critical of the guy too. I felt like in the last weekend that I watched him, I felt like he was hitting the ground a little too easily. But I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion. But anyway, guys, go ahead.
But no, the other thing with Pulido playing in the centre for Chivas is that Zaldívar is playing on the wing. And I'm quite excited by Zaldívar, the way he's developed, the way he was developing before Pulido came. I mean, obviously he lacks goals. I mean, as a central striker, again, he misses too many chances, but his work rate was exceptional. And these strikers, look at the Chicharito's history. You know, these strikers, sometimes they need a few matches. They need to get used to the rhythm of the first division before you can expect him. I just thought Zaldívar was on the brink. I think he's a player with a really good mentality, and you think, just keep going. And you look now, and Pulido's in there, Zaldívar's out wide, and it's like, I don't think he's going to get the chance.
Yeah, and look, and when Zaldívar was at his peak, was reaching almost a good momentum, he got the call up by Osorio because there was no other Mexican striker that was at that level. You know, that's how that position is. And of course, we kind of sound like a broken recorder, because we always say, we're lacking strikers, of course. But most of the strikers are in Europe, luckily. I mean, you got Jimenez, you got Chicharito, you got Vela, you got Giovanni and stuff. Now, well, Giovanni's in MLS, but there's options abroad, you know?
No, that makes sense why someone, recently, someone like Angel Sepúlveda was obviously like considered as well. But anyway, guys, let's take a step back. Let's look at the roster one final time. And I want to ask you guys, who will be the surprise addition? Who will be the unexpected, player who's going to be included? Whoa, what was that? I think that's
it's a tamales, yo. They always come at this hour.
Bring them in, man. I'm hungry. Come on, get me one, man.
Get us some. Show us what you can pick up.
Yeah.
No, the tamales oaxaqueños, those are the ones that mole verde, rajas. The rajas are good.
Get me to the mole verde and bring it over to Cindy. All right, guys. So who will be your surprise, like if the unexpected surprise addition to El Tri's roster for next week? Naib, your thoughts?
Is it
going to be the tamale guy? I hope so.
No. Well, I don't know if he likes tamales. He probably likes tamales. But I would say Lionel Lopez would be my pick for a surprise call-up. I mean, I think what he did last season with Torrente, no one knew about Lopez before Torrente came in. There were talks in the locals about his talents, but with Torrente, he just took off. And now, as you see how difficult it has been for Leon to sort of accommodate the pieces because there's been several injuries. He can play on the right, he can play on the left, he can play on the center. He's versatile. And like Tom said, I mean, he looks like a player that he just wants to keep growing. I mean, he just doesn't care about anything. I mean, it's just like he gets on the field. Sometimes he does commit mistakes. I will always remember that game against Chivas over there in Leon. He got red carded and he actually left the pitch crying because he knew that was a big moment for him, playing against Chivas. There's a lot of people watching, the all-Mexican team. You want to prove yourself. And actually, I think Lopez is actually from Jalisco. So that moment was crushing for him. But afterwards, the crowd was really, they show a lot of warmth afterwards, even though he got red carded in that game.
Tom, who will your surprise addition be for the roster?
I mean, I'm gonna say Daniel Arriola from Atlas, and I don't think he necessarily should be in there, but he's a left-footed centre back and he's playing, and we all know the problems that Mexico have had. I mean, behind Hector Moreno, you've got Alanis from Chivas, who's still not got back to the form that he showed, when he used to be called up. I believe under Miguel Herrera. Yasser Corona's not playing. Yeah. So it's like, I just feel like, Osorio's just going to bring him in. A couple of other names just to throw out there. Yeah. I think these would. Rafael Baca.
Oh, okay. All right. He's not doing bad. He's not doing bad as a defensive midfielder.
Although he's not considered Mexican by.
Yeah, that's right.
He'll get called up by the national team.
Well,
I just think under Hemmers he's kind of taking on more responsibility. I think he's like circling the ball really well. I mean, I've got the doubt again about the physical side. I don't think Osorio wants that type of player in the central midfield, or otherwise he'd pick, Gaito Vasquez or Michael Perez or Jonathan Dos Santos. There's a lot of players of that style, so it would be a bit surprised. But I think Baca. He's done really exceptionally well. Like the way he's come down from MLS, he struggled to get minutes early on, and now he's kind of he seems to be an increasingly important player for Cruz Azul, one of the biggest teams. Well,
for as someone who used to watch him with the San Jose Earthquakes all the time, I approve of that message, Tom. All right, guys, let's look over at Liga MX weekend. Unfortunately, I know we don't want to. I don't want to. I felt bad. So Jason, Jason Markowitz, Ask Soccer Mexicana, he came over while I was sick, and I was just like, I don't know, just like drinking water and just like only eating cough drops. So he was drinking beer, and I felt bad that I couldn't like partake in any of the festivities. But like, it was probably the most boring like Saturday of like Liga MX matches that I've ever watched. I don't know. It was just very, very dull for me. Guys, you know what? In a weekend that only had three matches that had more than one goal. I mean, we're probably going to talk about these three matches, but what stood out to you? What stood out the most to you? Naeem, we'll go to you. What stood out the most to you in this Liga MX weekend?
I think I've had the chance. There's been 4 games so far in the league, and I've seen Pachuca's 2 home games so far against Chiapas. I think Chiapas is. Pachuca won that match. 1 goal scored by now is off to San Lorenzo, and the scoreless draw against Toluca. And Toluca was coming off a loss against Chiapas last week. So for me, it was interesting to see the developments that are going on in Pachuca, because it's strange right now. It's talking about a 20 million offer for Chucky Lozano. Pizarro's gone now. So they're trying to find that equilibrium, of like what is their style, because we kind of think, for once, Pachuca's really intense, especially in attack in the wings with Urreta Vizcaya and Lozano. But they actually did have, when Pizarro was in the team, they were a possession-based team. But now that I see them, and at the start of the season, without Pizarro, they lost that possession-based game because there's no pause. I mean, Gutierrez is good with the passing, but he's more of a distributor, a through pass type of guy, and a long pass type of guy. Guti loves sending those long passes to Chucky Lozano. I mean, it's basically they don't even need to see each other, and they know the pass down. That's how good they are. But that possession-based game, the pases cortos, the short passing in the area, I don't see it right now in Pachuca. And against Toluca, they were really lucky. Toluca with Sambuesa and Barrientos, they're starting to understand each other, with Uribe up top. So it's a team to be reckoned with. I mean, Cesar, you have them as a team that could vie for the title, and definitely they do have the players. And I think they were really lucky to not lose on Saturday. I mean, it was a scoreless draw, but I think Toluca had the best chances. So that's kind of the story I had for the weekend.
Interesting. Tom, what stood out to you this weekend?
What stood out to me? I mean, I like Pumas. I think it's really coming together with Paco Palencia. I think that, obviously they went behind early and then came back. I like the balance more than anything at Pumas now. I think they've gone back to that traditional where they've got that base of Mexican, a lot of them homegrown players now, and then also those kind of foreigners sprinkled in there to add some quality to it. And obviously Nico Castillo looks like a great buy from Pumas. And if you watch the Veracruz game as well against America and saw Eduardo Herrera, you saw the difference there. You saw the difference in quality between what you get with Nico Castillo and Herrera.
I mean, I saw a terrible miss from Lalo Herrera over the weekend, so it's easy to know the difference between those two. But
I mean, there is a difference in quality, and I think Pumas are reaping the benefits, the rewards now of getting someone like Castillo. What else? America, I thought that was a big win for him. I thought it wasn't pretty. Veracruz made it really difficult. It was proper at the end of the game, proper long ball from Veracruz.
Yeah.
He's so rare you see it in Mexico. But it was literally launch the ball. And then, I think that, you could go through every game really, but the other thing that I thought, I know we've talked about it, but I don't know if there's too many things I want to bring up here, but right, Cardona with Monterrey. There's debate whether that was a red card or not. For me, you can't really complain. You can't be going up with your arms so high like that, because for me, if every player knows they can do that and only get a yellow, then it becomes a dangerous game. It becomes violent, doesn't it? If you're going into challenges like that. But just quick thing, Santos. I don't think I've even mentioned him over the last few weeks, but I think tentatively, they're up into third now, 8 points, unbeaten. Yeah. They've got Izquierdos and Araujo, who look like a really good centre-back partnership, legitimately quality.
Yeah, and if we're talking about those strong, aggressive central defenders, that Osorio's looking at Araujo and being like, "Oh, dude, that's my guy. I'm bringing him up next. I'm bringing him up for the next friendly."
No doubt about it. But also, they tend, again, I like the balance. I like the fact that they're playing Jorge Sanchez and Arteaga on the wings, and Ulises Rivas as well, three legitimate homegrown players, and Sandoval as well, that Gael Sandoval. They've got 4 legitimate under 21 homegrown players in that, mixed with those foreigners with experience, and it's finally Chepo's got that organisation going. I know there's been a lot of set piece goals, but it seems to be coming together, and it's good to see Santos kind of doing their own thing and it succeeding again.
Yeah.
No, what about you, Cesar?
Yeah, Cesar, you go.
Oh, me. Let's see what stood out to me during week 4. I'm gonna go. So we already talked about it, but the Pumas comeback against Necaxa. Obviously, I mean, we haven't even talked about that yet, but just we haven't talked about the fact that Tigres lost 1-0 to Chiapas. That was a result of the weekend, wasn't it? That was kind of incredible right there. As soon as Chiapas, provided that first goal, I thought I was like, all right, here we go. Let's see what Tigres can do. Come on, let's see. I've always felt that Tigres for me are the most exciting when they're down a goal, because then that forces them to actually be more aggressive, be a little bit more assertive. And so that's what I anticipated, but they just looked a little, Ismael Sosa looked a little off. Gignac couldn't really do much. And the funny thing is this is something we're going to talk about soon enough, is that if I was a Tigres fan, I still wouldn't be that worried, because there's another guy that's coming in who's going to be helping them out in the attack, a certain guy named Eduardo Vargas, who scored 4 goals past Mexico last summer. So it's interesting how once again the team is a little hesitant. You wonder, and we had that I remember at some point last season we're just is this a crisis there's a little crisis little period for them, what's going to happen, blah 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 blah, and they ended up winning the title. Now they're struggling a little bit, but now they're going to have Eduardo Vargas in, so I think I think that's interesting to consider, despite the fact that they lost against a relegation candidate.
Yeah, there's quick additions on what you guys have said about Pumas. The situation is interesting because when I see Pumas, I still have my doubts about the Verón Alcoba partnership. And the main reason I still have doubts is because they were destroyed by Tigres in the Liguilla, and it looked pretty awful. So that's my doubt. But of course, they have the experience, they have the leadership, they command from the back, and I think that's key for Pumas. Pumas does remind me of Pachuca in the 2016 Clausura, when they made those additions of Omar Gonzalez and Oscar Murillo to sort of put everything together. Well, the additions of Ravelo and Castillo, 2 Chileans who actually played together in the U20s over there in Chile, that's a good mixture. It's working out right now for Palencia. And then if you think Barrera scoring goals, well, that's actually Barrera's goal reminded me a lot of the 2011 goal he scored against the U.S. in the Gold Cup final. It was really similar. He comes on the right and then shoots far from the goalkeeper. And another thought about Santos is, Furch hasn't scored a goal yet. Furch, a big striker in Veracruz, think he needs to start rolling. Jonathan Rodriguez scored a couple of goals some weeks ago, and Giannini Tavares. So it's interesting that he's using those 3 players from the get-go, Chepo de la Torre.
Yeah.
And they got to start bringing in the goals, because right now, in the last 2 games, it's been Nestor Araujo and Izquierdos. Nestor has 2 goals and Izquierdos has 1 goal. I mean, you don't want to depend too much on scoring from center backs. You got to develop more up front. But I think that also has to do with Valdito Martinez, who's barely coming from America, and is molding into his new life over there and adapting. And of course, Cesar, what happened in Chiapas, it could have been more. It could have been 2-0, 3-0.
Yeah, they looked really good on those counters, didn't they? Jaguares looked excellent off those counters. They look fantastic, actually.
Yeah, they're surprising. They've been really. It's almost like they've come together, obviously because of the situation. The club's for sale. I think the players will be playing for the futures.
Yeah, exactly.
This team's only going to be here for the Clausura. Everybody in Chiapas knows that. And I know before it's what manager and Sergio Bueno will be talking to the players and say, listen, let's do it. I mean, you've got 3 months now. You're probably not going to be with this club after that. I might not be here. Let's absolutely play for our places. Let's play for our futures here, and see where it takes us. But yeah, I mean, Quick Mendoza. I mean, he's back. I mean, he really is back. He's been one of the best, wide players, I think, in the league this season. And obviously that Fabro guy he's just. Yeah,
Jonathan Fabro's been excellent. Yeah,
he's brilliant. So you've got I don't know. It's weird to see it come out like that. But yeah, with Tigres, with Vargas, obviously the big signing. It's going to be very interesting at Tigres, and I say that because Andy Delort's gone back to France, signed for Toulouse, and I think that he came with the idea that Tuca Ferretti was going to change the formation to a 4-4-2. And when that didn't happen, Delort's not a player who's going to be shifted out onto the wing, and neither is Gignac. And so Delors was just waiting for Gignac basically to get injured or the team to be behind so that Tuca puts on another striker. And, obviously his chances were limited. Now, when it comes to Eduardo Vargas, obviously Vargas is a better player than Delors.
Mm-hmm.
But who are you taking out of that team? And number one, who are you taking out of that team? And number two, if you took a Ferretti, how are you going to keep those players happy? Aquino, Jürgen Damm, Ismael Sosa, Gignac. How are you keeping those guys happy? And Vargas, if he ends up playing on the wing, is he going to be happy? Because,
I think
I don't know.
Let's jump into this. I know this isn't something that we prepared for, but all right, I'm going to ask you guys. All right, so right now, those are the four main guys. We got Gignac and Sosa, and we got Jürgen Damm and Aquino on the sides. If you were Tuca, where would you place Vargas? And you don't you don't necessarily have to put him in a starting role. If you think that he's a bench player, you say he's a bench player. But Naib, if you were Tuca, where would you place Vargas in this starting 11?
Where Sosa is placed, I think that's what I would do. But here's the thing, it will depend on how Aquino or Damm are doing, because let's put Damm's situation on the table. I mean, this is a kid that's been wanting to go to Europe for a long time already, and he's desperate to get out, And this is the thing. Damm actually was really good in the Liguilla for Tigres. Let's put it. He was sensational on the wing and the right wing. Yeah. But Sosa can also play in the right wing because he did it at Pumas. So that's my thought is you sit Damm, you move Sosa to the right, Aquino on the left, and Vargas and Gignac. Of course, Vargas, and then let's not forget about Lucas Elarrayan. Does that mean Lucas Elarrayan moves more back to the midfield with Dueñas?
Yeah.
Dueñas and Elarrayan are battling for a starting role there. So I think it's a nice problem to have. I mean, shoot, America would want to have that kind of problem, but they don't, So I think here it will depend on what today Tuca Ferretti said is straightforward. I mean, Vargas has to play like he plays with Chile. If he doesn't play like that, he's not going to play at all. I mean, look what happened to the Lord. I mean, I think Ferretti is really serious about that situation. If you're not on, if you don't understand my ideas, you're not going to play. I mean, I think that's how much power Tuca Ferretti has in Tigres.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult situation, like you said. No, especially, I mean, I guess ideally, Jürgen Damm would have made that move over to Europe, and then you could potentially move Sosa over there in his position. Then you'd move over Vargas right below Gignac. But no, it's a tough situation. Tom, what are your thoughts? Like, if you had to choose a spot for him to play, well, where would it be, man?
Yeah, I agree with Naib pretty much completely with that. I mean, I think it has to be alongside or just behind Gignac. I mean, I think he's going to force a slight change from Ferretti, even though Sosa is playing pretty far forward right now. But and then I think it's a choice between, you shift Sosa out to the wing. Don't know whether that's the left or the right. And then obviously, you pick between Damm and Aquino. I'd personally leave Aquino out, but it's very hard to do because Aquino's a great player. But I mean, this is the nature of this Tigres side now. I mean, I could make an argument that Gignac, Sosa, Guido Pizarro, three of the best players in the league. Arguably the three best.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is that an exaggeration?
No, not at all.
The three best, Tom. I mean, of course, Sosa I think Sosa, when he was in Pumas, he was practically the best player for Pumas in the Libertadores. Let's not forget, I think they got eliminated by the Ecuadorian club. That was historic. And Sosa was by far there. There you have Gignac. Yeah. Man, now that I'm analyzing by myself, you're right. I think
for me,
Gignac and Sosa.
Yeah, Gignac and Pizarro are definitely up there for me. Sosa, he's
among the top five, definitely.
Yeah. Easily. There you go. I think easily in the top five. But yeah, no, that's an excellent point to make. That just like, I mean, it just shows so much like how stacked this roster is. And I wrote about this, recently before 4-4-2, saying that like even before Vargas made the move over here, Tigres were already the most talented side in Mexico. Now you bring in Vargas, and it's ridiculous, and you wonder what this will mean not only just for the league but for CONCACAF, And it's just when you're going to have, the CONCACAF Champions League, when you're going to have the new format that's going to cater towards Major League Soccer a little bit better in 2018. And what if Tigres just completely overrun these sides? But that's that's far in the future, guys. That's something we could talk about in a different day. But what I want to ask you guys is just, in the immediate future, do you think, and it's kind of like a vague kind of general question, but do you think that Vargas will be able to make an instant impact in the league? Tom? Nope.
I think he can.
Yeah.
I wrote about it before we did the article, and I was like, well, which player would be good to see in the Liga MX, like the realistic players? And I said Vargas.
Yeah.
And I think that he's a player who he's shown his talent for Universidad de Chile. He was brilliant in a classic team. It was such a great team to watch back a few years ago. And obviously with the national team, he's been sensational. He's gone over to Europe. He's jumped around a lot. And it's not worked for him. I think coming back to Latin America, coming back to a league with a lot of Chilenos, I think he'll adapt better. I think he'll feel better in his kind of personal life. He was nearer Chile as well if he wants to, go back in the holidays and stuff. So I'm backing him to do well. I think the defenses aren't as good, obviously, as in the Premier League or as in the Bundesliga or in La Liga.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he'll have a lot of success in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, and let's not forget that the other team of Monterrey a couple of years ago, Rayados, had someone called Suazo, Chilean. Who how he did quite well. So Monterrey is a land for Chilenos. I think this is going to be interesting to see what type of feeling between Tuca and Vargas. If there's a good feeling between those two, of course we'll see Vargas in the 11. I mean, it's just and Tigres. Look, Tigres must win the Conca Champions. I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Pachuca's going to compete there. They're really serious about the Conca Champions, but the squad that Tigres has already is uncomparable. I mean, it's they can play however the heck they want, and they can rest some players at given moments. I don't know. Of course, Tuca is not into rotations, but he does have a legitimate team to do that type of stuff. Because you got even the Quiñones on the bench. And Quiñones was a starter in Pumas, and he was great in Pumas. And now you have him on the bench. It's like that he could start anywhere in Liga MX, So it's just fascinating to see a team of that sort be so powerful. I mean, it's like
I remember when I wrote down. I think I might have even written it for an article about how Quiñones was one of the best signings of the season. Blah blah blah. The guy's just chilling on the bench. He's part of the backup roster. It's just once again it's just feeds into this whole idea just how incredible and ridiculous the depth is of a Tigres' roster. Tom, you were saying?
No, I completely agree. It's actually almost a bit of a historic team now. I think it's laying the mark down. I think it's something in 20 years people look back at this era of almost the super Tigres. Tigres really, when going back 5 years, what were Tigres? I mean, before Ferretti, that was it 2011 title. Or was it 2012?
No, I think it was 2011. I think that he won.
I remember when there was a play Gaitan. Gaitan was really great to watch in Tigres, Argentine. But that was it. Look, think about Gaitan. You go from Gaitan to Gignac in a span of 10 years.
What I think too is just I think it, and I wrote about this too in that same 442 article. We're just I think it makes this kind of makes a lot of fans second guess the idea of the big four. When you think of someone like Tigres, who are just they're so talented, you have and that huge amount of fans, the Volcan, and they even have a manager who's been there since 2010, who's brought them 3 titles since 2011. It's just they are now undeniably the giant of Liga MX.
Yeah,
but easily, yeah.
I mean, I think it's great for new fans. I think it brings a focus as well, because it's if you want to get into this league, then follow Tigres because they're a legitimately top team now. I think we've seen it as well. I mean, they were in Guadalajara a couple of weeks ago, and we know that Tigres have an away following, but I feel like the people that I saw around the Estadio Jalisco weren't from Monterrey, weren't from Nuevo León. These were people who were kind of locals who were supporting Tigres, and the shop, the little stalls outside the ground. It was scarves with Tigres campeón and
Guadalajara.
Guadalajara. And then, even last weekend in Chiapas, it was full. The stadium was like, the Chiapas stadium pretty much never sells out. I don't know if it was sold out, but there was like, and you looked at it, and when the camera panned to the crowd, there was a notable number of Tigres fans. So I think when you talk about the grandes, the cuatro grandes, obviously, Cruz Azul, Pumas, America, and Chivas, I think they're only known as that because of the fan base. And I think the difference between those and every other team is that they've got fans all over the country. So even if Cruz Azul go and play in Tijuana, they'll have a significant fan base. The same in Guadalajara. Chivas go everywhere. Whereas Tigres and Monterrey, as good as the fans are, is very much regional. But I think that if Tigres continue with this, we are going to see that. We're going to see... Yeah. I mean, if you're a young kid now, and you've just seen Tigres win 2 titles in 2 years, you've seen Gignac and everyone's talking about him, then, you're going to support Tigres right now over, say, America or Cruz Azul, especially Cruz Azul.
If you're that young kid, you're going to be buying that Gignac jersey. That's the jersey that you want. You want Gignac. You're not going to be getting a Oribe Peralta jersey. That's for sure. You're not going to be getting like the Gignac is like the guy.
And look, in Liga MX, for example, you see the neighbor Rayados has also a stacked squad. However, I think it's just this organization that Tigres showcases to the whole league. I mean, Ferretti has been there for a while, and he has a lot of power. I mean, the power that Ferretti has is comparable to the power that Sir Alex Ferguson had in Manchester United. I mean, of course, it's different dimensions, but that's how it feels, because the guy is there no matter if they're in a bad slump as they are right now, because losing against Atlas and Jaguares is not typical for a team so stacked like Tigres, but it happens in Liga MX. And that's how Liga MX works. I mean, what matters is those last 7 weeks of the regular season. If you're hot in those last 7 weeks and you go into the Liguilla, then look what happened last season with Tigres. Gignac was in a scoring drought. The Liguilla started, he went to the hypnotist, and he started scoring all the
goals. You can say his name. We all know it's John Milton. That guy, oh God, the attention that John Milton got. My God, that guy was like Univision. Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people talk about why we talk about Gignac so much, and because there's been other great strikers in Mexico, like Salvador Cabañas, for example, like Suazo, how I mentioned. But this guy does something else. I mean, it's just it's different. It's different for Mexico that all of a sudden a French striker who was successful in Olympique de Marseille comes to Mexico and acts like he's been in Mexico forever. I mean, that's not something you see every day. That's why it's so notorious and so spectacular for us. I think that's why he is different from the rest of great strikers that have come to Liga MX. And there's been many, like Bamam Zamorano, for example, that came to America. It's just it's not something that you see every day.
Well, guys, speaking of strikers, there's a certain noteworthy striker. I don't know if you guys have heard him. His name is Chicharito, who actually ended his goal drought over the weekend. Even though Bayer Leverkusen lost 3-2 to Borussia Mönchengladbach, Chicharito got a goal. It was massive. It was his first goal since October 1st. We're not going to be including the Florida Cup in January because, I don't know. I mean, obviously that goal was important during the Florida Cup. But officially, it was his first goal since October 1st, which if I remember correctly, was against Borussia Dortmund, if I remember correctly. So now with Chicharito scoring, he's got one right now in the Bundesliga. Is he back? Is he going to continue to find the back of the net? I mean, I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the goal or catch the game, but what are your guys' thoughts on Chicharito, especially heading into 2017? Tom?
I don't know.
I know it's one goal. We got it. We have to talk about it. It's Chicharito. He ended the drought. We have to talk about it. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, I just think that I don't know. I mean, I think my point of view is a bit boring on this though, because I mean? It's like because obviously everybody. I agree with what Chicharito says as well about being a striker. That you're always judged on your goals, but really. It comes down to so much more. But I don't know. I mean, he's going to score goals. He's going to have droughts. He's going to go on amazing scoring runs, just as he's going to go on have a period of games without hitting the back of the net. And I think that's what he's just come come off the back of. But at the end of the day, he's a very good player. I mean, he's not kind of Ronaldo, he's not Messi, but he's a very good striker, and the type of striker he is, I think he's improved a lot on me as well. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for improving from when he say first couple of years at Manchester United to now. He's way better with his back to goal. He's way better in kind of becoming part of the build-up. Now, don't get me wrong, it's never going to be the strongest side of his game. It's always going to be that poaching and the movement inside the box. But he's a lot more rounded as a player than he was. So yeah, I mean, good for him that he's got the goal. It's great for Mexico with the qualifiers, creeping up all the time now. But I mean, more than anything, I think Bayer Leverkusen now, they needed to win that game. I mean, they want to get back into the Champions League. I mean, that's the kind of game at home that you want to be winning, really.
Yeah, and at this stage, of course, Leverkusen is not even in the Europa League places, and I think that's worrying. And then, of course, Chicharito's a guy that at times when the big moments come, he tends to shine. I mean, I recall perfectly the times that Manchester United played against Chelsea in the Champions League and how important he was. Well, now Leverkusen has a matchup against Atletico Madrid. And I think that's going to be an important moment for him to retain that confidence in a big scenario. Because a couple of years ago, when Chicharito was still not at Leverkusen, they complicated things to Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, as did PSV with Guardado and Moreno last year, right? So this is an important moment, I think, for Chicharo, because he's hated by Atletico or the Madrid fans because his goal when he was in Real Madrid eliminated Atletico in the Champions League. So there's history there. And look, the guy is remarkable because every league that he has gone to, he's done well. I think this is one of the serious lumps that he's gone through, but it gets a lot of notoriety because he's actually a starter and an important player in the team. And I think before that it wasn't the case. He was in the bench mob for the most part, unfortunately. But it's important. March is coming up. Raul Jimenez is not playing with Benfica as much, injuries, so of course at the end of the day, Chicharito is the undisputed number 9 striker for El Tri right now.
Yeah, and I like to be kind of like sensationalistic and be like, oh, is Chicharito up there? Is he down? Is he terrible? Is he excellent? But like, I think it's also it's really easy for us Mexico fans when we watch Chicharito, when we watch especially Bayer Leverkusen to just single in just no one else other than him when we're watching those matches, and we kind of forget those key players. And I think it was actually I read an article which actually I really liked from the Colorful Kit, who interviewed I forget who it was exactly, who runs a podcast for Bayer Leverkusen, who was talking about certain key players like Bellarabi, who led the team in assists last season, who's had injury problems within the first half of the season, who's now starting to get back into the team. And we think, oh, it's Chicharito's struggling. And we recognize, well, actually, maybe it's because some of those guys who used to provide him with those passes, that distribution, they weren't really there within the first few months. And now, in the second half, they'll be... And I actually, if I remember correctly, he was actually the one who gave Chicharito the assist over the weekend. And maybe we'll see something a little bit different now that those key players will be here in 2017.
Yeah, I think that with Chicharito, it's almost like right now, because he firstly played for Chivas, secondly signed for Manchester United, then he goes to Real Madrid. I think from Mexico, and he's a nice guy, he's a good guy. I think from the Mexican point of view, I think everybody puts all like the hopes, not. Yeah. I think the footballing hopes more than anything. And
he's the symbol. He's the symbol of the national. Yeah.
Of all Mexican football, and it's like when Chicharito does well, everybody, the whole Mexican football community feels good about itself. But when Chicharito isn't doing well and he's not scoring, then it's kind of, I don't know, people get dragged down by it and like, oh, we're terrible, and I don't know. It's always like kind of one way or the other. But I mean, I think he's in recent interviews he's been very kind of eloquent in the way he's described it himself and what he means, and the way he actually criticized Mexican society as well, and said kind of like the thing with Gignac and that John Milton, when Milton was calling out Chicharito, and he's saying, look, what I've achieved, I've done on my own. Like I don't need somebody to be kind of clinging on my back and asking, and trying to, say that I need a hypnotist and stuff. So I think it's been really interesting with Chicharito, and it's going to be interesting moving forward as well. I mean, we'll see what happens at the end of the season. Leverkusen are going to keep him because in this summer he'll only have 1 year left on his contract. And there were those rumours that maybe they'll sell him on, and Bayer Leverkusen are a very rational kind of business. Well, they're owned by a business, aren't they?
Yeah.
Bayer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a what is it, pharmaceutical company? So, if I'm not mistaken, but they're very much like, right, he's got one year on. We either get him to sign a new contract, or we sell him for what we got, because at least he get, what was it, 15 million? 15 million euros, 14.
Yes,
I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, China will give him 115.
LAFC will give him 200 million.
Yeah, and then I think when we look at it from the Mexico national team perspective and what happened in the last World Cup qualifiers, I think there's a good core of players. And I will just point out the U.S. game, because I think it was significant to get the win over there, and how the core of players worked out. Layun scored a goal. Tecatito was sharp. Vela was sharp. If we see that consistency, it doesn't depend solely on Chicharito's goals. I mean, I think there's a good supporting core around him that could enable him to reach that goal-scoring mark that he is on the verge of breaking, becoming the El Tri's all-time leading goal scorer, which is probably, let us hope that it happens this year because of all the games that are going to happen.
Oh my God, if it doesn't, oh my God.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's one of the keys. This is a year that we don't want to have that nightmare again, of having so much complications to qualify to a World Cup when there's 6 teams, there's 3.5 tickets. I mean, come on. You have home games that, and you got to make sure you make that home advantage count. So that's going to be really important for Chicharito and the rest of the team, and Juan Carlos Osorio as well, no?
Yeah, and my question to you guys, really quickly, is say that this was just kind of an anomaly. The goal drought continues, and he just continues to struggle to find the back of the net. Do you think there's any chance, or if you were to choose some sort of backup for Chicharito, who would that player be? Or maybe even if Chicharito does regularly find the back of the net, do you think there's a certain striker right now in Mexico who could potentially steal minutes away from Chicharito in 2017? Tom?
Potentially, yeah. Potentially, Raul Jimenez can become the starter for Benfica, banging a load of goals. Because at the end of the day, he should be in the Portuguese league. I mean, he should be now. He's at an age and a place now where he's 25 years old. He's no longer this 20, 21-year-old kid at Club America. I mean, he should be. I mean, it's easy to say should be. I'm not saying, I don't know. I know he's at least he's made the journey over there and he's on his path, but he needs to be making an impact now. And I think that without Raul Jimenez, 33 now, is it? I think
Peralta, yeah, 33, 34.
I said it with some authority, and then I was like, wait up.
No, he's. I think he's pretty sure he's 33. Yeah. Also, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just to say you cut out there for a second, which is why when you said 33, I didn't really react. But anywho, sorry. Continue. Sorry.
No, but then it's like, who's after that? Who is there? He's struggling so badly. I mean, Vela. Yeah. Vela's not really been playing in as a striker.
No.
I mean, okay, is he a striker? I don't know. I mean,
the problem is we can name a lot of, like I say, the Velas or Gios or Tecatitos, Ozanos. Those guys aren't out and out true strikers. Those guys are the ones who could support the striker, but they aren't strikers themselves. And past the Chicharitos and the Jimenezes, and I mean, do we really, like you said, can we really rely on Uribe? At that point.
I mean, I think you can rely on him. I think he'll be fine in qualifying and all that. He's clearly good enough to play. It's just, at the World Cup when you come again, he's going to be 34 by that time or more.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then I think you have doubts. I don't have any doubts about Uribe. I think that he's still a very good player, but he's not Chicharito when Chicharito's banging him in. I think Jimenez's kind of ceiling is also higher, but Jimenez now has to I mean, I know we said this before, but not just the striker, but you look Carlos Salcedo as well, not getting the minutes in Fiorentina, which is a bit worrying. Miguel Layun. I mean, these are players who really should be, sure starters in L3, but the fact that they're not playing regularly with the club team does, I think does that put that in doubt.
Yeah. Naib, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's follow up on the Salcedo situation.
Yeah.
Because, even though he got red carded against the U.S. and Columbus, there was personality and a good positive attitude in his performance, coming in after Guardado got injured. It wasn't easy to plug himself into the defense and support Rafael Marquez, who was, getting tired, but at the end he scored the goal. But that's strange, the situation that Salcedo is living, because he came in, started a lot of games over there in Fiorentina, and all of a sudden he just stopped getting starts. I don't know if he's not training well, if there's some contract deals going up there. Let's keep in mind it's a loan over there in Fiorentina. He still belongs to Chivas, so I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, there was rumors that he was going to get bought. That Fiorentina was actually going to buy him, but we're still not sure if that's going to happen. Because if Fiorentina was really positive about buying him, he would be playing right now, but he's not. But and Tecatito also scored a goal this weekend, didn't he? I mean, I think that's also pointing out. Herrera was captain, which is kind of strange, considering the season he's had, but he's still captain somehow.
It's strange. It's strange to see the criticism that I'll see online from Porto fans for Herrera, and he still gets the captain's armband. I know he's been much better this year. Like, I know it's been a short year. It's only been a few matches, but it is interesting to see Herrera given that captain's armband after, looking a little off during the second half of 2016.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what we're going back to here, I mean, we talk about these players pretty much every week on the show. And I think, these things happen when you go to Europe. These things happen. It's not like, no, I feel like a bit cruel when I'm saying about Raul Jimenez. He's got to be playing, what's he called? Mitroglou, the Greek striker. He's like 27 and he's 28 in his prime. He's got a lot of goals in the Greek league. He's scored a lot of goals in Portugal. It's not easy to get, to take that guy's place, But I think that the thing here is that the secondary issue is that what we've seen this January transfer window. I mean, how many Mexicans have gone to Europe again?
Zero.
Yeah, zero. Yeah.
And it's like we're still focusing on these players. So, Herrera is going, having spells of form, having spells of not playing so well. Chicharito the same, Carlos Salcedo. I mean, to a certain degree, it's normal, And I just think that when it's in the Mexican context, you don't have that many players, so we're speaking about the same 12 all the time.
Yeah,
if all of a sudden now we've got Dam, who we know had offers from Europe.
Yeah.
If we had Lozano, who we had offers from PSV and Benfica, then suddenly you've got two more players to add to the whole mix. Araujo, I think, I agree with Juan Carlos Osorio. He's got the potential to play in Europe. There are a number of players now. I mean, Ulises Rivas has been linked with. I can't remember which team in Serie A. I mean, the potential's there to export more players, but because it's not happening, I think we just focus our attention on the ones that are there naturally. It's not necessarily a criticism.
Yeah, of course.
But then it's kind of like that's the context.
It is the context, and also, there's different things to see it. I mean, when I see the situations, when I, for example, compare what's going on in Mexico with what's going on in Chile, because there's a lot of Chileans that are coming to Liga MX all of a sudden after the 7-0. But there's a lot of Chileans, for example, Marcelo Diaz in Celta de Vigo. You see that case, and you're like, why can't Herrera reach that level? I mean, I'm not gonna be in here comparing stuff, but I think Herrera has the potential to be a top player. I think it has to do a lot with the mentality, and also with how the federation is run. Look over there in Chile, they got Bielsa and Sampaoli, and that was basically 8 years or something, 7 years of that process with two coaches that basically think the same similar ideology. How many coaches have we had in Mexico? 11 coaches in that same time span, maybe, or 10. Yeah. That messes up the mentality of the players because they have different mentors. Right now, there's some sort of stability with Osorio. That's how it appears to be. There was some sort of stability with Piojo Herrera, but then look what happened. He messed up with a he just messed it up big time. But there was a good communication there with Piojo Herrera, you know. And those processes get cut, and that at the end, I think that does affect international player, because you come to Mexico and it's so different every single time you come. Right now, there is a coach, you know, there's Osorio who's more than, I mean, I think the fact that Osorio maintained his job after the 7-0, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, because the easy route would have been to fire him at that instant. But they kept him and they got the win in Columbus. No other coach has ever gotten that win in Columbus. No La Volpe, no La Puente, nobody. It's Osorio. End of story. And I think here maybe he might make an impact in the players. And I think that could affect positively the players in Europe as well, you know.
No, I think Tom, if I remember correctly, there was an interview you had with one of the veterans. I forget who said that one of the biggest complaint was, you know, what Naib just said, was that there is no continuity, there is no regular manager there who develops this kind of idea or character with the national team. I forgot how that was, but anywho, sorry.
No, exactly. It's what makes football lacked. I think there is a general idea of style of play, but it's not as distinct as, you know, the Bielcista system with Chile, for example, or, you know, what happened in Spain or in Germany, where you've got an absolute fixed identity that's continued. But I mean, I don't think it's the full story. I think the Mexican clubs just aren't willing to sell, and it's easy to blame them and to say, "Oh, let our players go, let the players go." But it's like Jurgen Damm for 10 million, and they get an offer 1 year later for 7 million. Then why are they going to sell him?
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes no sense for them to sell him. It's just like the Mexican player is overvalued on the world market.
Most definitely.
I can't remember. I just seen a transfer the other day.
No, are you talking about the Lozano one, where they were saying that like it was 20 million too? Like that's another thing that recently popped up, which seemed ridiculous too, just for the overvaluation of these players.
But Marco Garces from Pachuca said that would have been the full value of the transfer had Lozano kind of met targets.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of some clauses, but Garces said, you know, he would have had to play like Maradona to do that. So it's like the offer was probably 7 million or 5 million. And then you kind of add it, you know, obviously if he reaches 10 caps with the national team, then another 2 million. If he scores 10 goals a season, another 2 million for Pachuca. And it's like, I mean, you look at some of the fees now, and outside the Premier League, to be honest, I mean, these are the prices. I mean, a European club isn't going to pay more than 7 million for Jurgen Damm.
Yeah,
I mean, it's difficult.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you do that?
The highest success, the highest success at national team level for El Tri is the gold medal in London. You know, Cameroon, Nigeria won gold medals, and that doesn't mean that the players are going to be overpriced in Europe. They got a certain price. I mean, I think if El Tri does well in competitions at a consistent basis, of course the price tag will raise. But you know, it's how the market works. I mean, I do understand the point that, you know, sometimes we want to undervalue the Mexican football, be like, oh no, Chucky should be sold for 15 million. But maybe that's not what, you know, they probably see 10 million at most, you know, so it's really complicated, really complex with all the numbers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Lozano's still got to nail down a place in the national team.
Yeah.
You know, and if you look at the competition, I mean, who's his competition? Tecatito Corona,
Vela,
Vela,
even Giovanni.
Giovanni, but I mean, even looking at those players, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but you know, Giovanni's a player who used to play in La Liga and now plays in MLS. You know, Lozano has to be playing over him to go to Europe for me. You know, Vela is obviously doing well, but I mean, how much is Vela worth? And he's in his prime. So would a club pay more right now for Lozano than Vela? I'm not sure. You know, Tecatito, how much is he worth now? And he's more proven in Europe. So, you know, if you've got an option of saying, I'll pay 7 million for Lozano or 10 million for Lozano and 13 million for Corona, I'd personally just pay more and go for Corona because he's established in Europe. You've seen what he can do. And that's just comparing between Mexican players. if you've got an option, Lozano or some kid in Ajax, or let's go, buy a Leverkusen player. They've got so many good young players. Which one are you going to go for? I don't know.
No.
It's just.
Well, guys, we could obviously talk about. I mean, once we started getting into this conversation, I knew just like, man, we could probably talk about this for at least another 20 or 30 minutes. We're talking because then we'll start talking about the players, and then we'll start talking about the managers. Why aren't there more Mexican managers, and why aren't they playing abroad? But anyway, it could be that's another podcast in itself. But guys, it's over here in the West Coast. It's almost 8:10. So before we wrap this up, let's hear last thoughts before we end the podcast, last thoughts before we say goodbye to everyone. Tom, let's hear last thought. Anything doesn't even have to be Liga MX related. Stay out of politics though, just because that bums me out. It bums me out. Okay, just do your thing. I'm sorry.
I was going to talk about D-Trump.
Oh God, no, man.
I'll save that for next week. All right, see you in a bit.
Naive, any last thoughts?
Real quick on thoughts now that I see the whole picture of what we talked today. Another surprise could be Chofis Lopez and for the Iceland game. We didn't talk about him. That could be a surprise call-up. There's a lot of people that want him already in the team. It's be interesting to see if he, in fact, gets the chance. And also, the fact that the league has been really dull, it's because Gignac hasn't scored. Boselli hasn't scored. Rogelio Funes Mori only has 1 goal. Edson Puig, who was dubbed one of probably the best player last season, Edson Puig, he's injured. So, of course, you take those players off. It's not fun right now. It's quite dull, like you said. Good news for America is Cecilio Dominguez, number 10 Paraguayan from Cerro Porteño. He scores in his debut. That's good news over here in Cuapa.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Naib. Thank you, Tom. Thank you to everyone on the chat. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. By the time we come back next week, we will probably we'll most definitely know what Mexico's roster will look like, and we'll provide you with a preview for that match against Iceland next week in Las Vegas, which if I remember correctly, Tom, you'll be there in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, are you going?
No, we'll figure it out. Maybe I might drive over. We'll see. All right, guys. Well, have a good night. Thank you to everyone on the chat, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you later.